This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
An explosion went off in the Zouk Musbah area in northern Beirut this evening.
ولكن كما ذكرنا 4 انفجارات قد ضربت منطقة بيروت منذ نحو 3 أسابيع عندما بدأت.
There is no immediate information about the cause of the explosion. 4 explosions have struck Beirut in the past 3 weeks when the battles between the Lebanese forces and the armed men from the Fateh al-Islam began in Nahr al-Bared Palestinian refugee camp in northern Lebanon. We will provide more details in future updates. These are the images from the site of the explosion. This is the industrial area where the majority of the residents are Christian. This is the Zouk Musbah area in northern Beirut.
مصبح شمالية بيروت. من معي الآن على الهاتف؟ طبعا نشاهد النيران تندلع.
Who is on the phone with us? We are seeing fires erupting. As we said earlier, there have been a number of explosions in the past 3 weeks in Lebanon. We have to speak about these explosions in the context of the confrontations between the Lebanese army and Fateh al-Islam, the radical armed men in Nahr al-Bared refugee camp. With me now is Abbas Nasser, our correspondent in Beirut. Abbas, can you provide details about this latest explosion in Zouk Musbah?
عباس ناصر مراسلنا من بيروت. عباس، هذا الانفجار الأخير في ذوق مصبح، هل من المزيد من التفاصيل حوله؟
نعم ليلى، أولا هو في المنطقة الصناعية في ذوق مصبح.
Yes, Layla. First, it is in the industrial area in Zouk al-Musbah. A fire erupted at the site of the explosion. There are concerns that other explosions may erupt because the blast happened in an area that contains inflammable substances and oxygen canisters. Naturally, these things are present in the industrial area. Investigations are ongoing to find out whether the explosion was an accident or an act of terrorism. So far, initial information indicates that the explosion was caused by an explosive device. It was premeditated explosion and not accidental. In any case, this is just initial information. So far, 2 people have sustained minor injuries. We saw them with our own eyes as they were transported by the Red Cross. We did not see any other injuries. However, the fire continues to blaze, and there is concern that this would lead to more explosions due to the presence of inflammable substances in this industrial area.
During the past few hours, Fateh al-Islam fighters tried to re-infiltrate the Nahr al-Bared camp, but they were confronted by the Lebanese army. Meanwhile, clashes erupted for the first time between fighters from Fateh al-Islam and fighters from the mainstream Fatah organization led by the late Yasser Arafat, also known as Abu Ammar.
قصف الجيش اللبناني بالأسلحة الثقيلة حي المدارس الذي يقع جنوب غرب مركز صام.
On Wednesday night and Thursday morning, a serious military escalation unfolded in Nahr al-Bared refugee camp. For the first time, the Lebanese army used heavy artillery while shelling the Madaris neighborhood in southwestern Nahr al-Bared. The shelling began after the Lebanese army observed some Fateh al-Islam fighters on the move near the Anarwai school, where they tried to establish a ground position to launch mortar shells. In a new development, and for the first time, some fighters from the mainstream Fatah organization, which is led by the Palestinian President Abu Mazen, clashed with Fateh al-Islam fighters who tried to re-infiltrate into residential areas south of Nahr al-Bared. This news came after Fateh al-Islam fighters re-infiltrated the residential areas southeast of the camp, The overnight clashes resulted in the death of a Lebanese soldier after a mortar shell landed near a security checkpoint in the area of Mehamra. The battles and confrontations continued to erupt in various fronts where the Lebanese army maintained control in areas previously controlled by Fateh al-Islam. The Lebanese army was also deployed on the outskirts of Nahr al-Bared in order to prevent Fateh al-Islam fighters from returning to the camp. On Thursday morning, the battles and confrontations changed into pockets of clashes. Today, the Lebanese army surrounded Nahr al-Bared, pounded Fateh al-Islam positions, and carried out sweeps inside the camp. There was relative calm along the international road leading to the camp, where armed militias opened fire on civilians and nearby residential neighborhoods. In a vague and surprising move, Fateh al-Islam fired its military commander Abu Huraira and appointed Shaheen, also known as Abu Salama, who is a Saudi national. In a statement to the French news agency, Shaheen threatened to take the fight beyond the parameters of Nahr al-Bared. On Wednesday afternoon, the Red Cross and the Palestinian Red Crescent were able to enter Nahr al-Bared, where they supplied food, water, and medicine to the besieged residents. They also transported out of the camp more than 70 residents, including 30 young men, who were stopped in the south at a Lebanese security checkpoint for questioning. The Lebanese army will continue to carry out military measures and ground operations until members of Fateh al-Islam surrender and face justice. The Lebanese military confirmed that it will distinguish between those who participated in the massacre against the army and those who later joined the fight.
Beneath the flying missiles and the tops of roofs, scenes from way up high. An investigative report from our colleague Nancy Sabi.
The rooftops of homes on the outskirts of Nahr al-Bared refugee camp were transformed into living rooms, hosting more guests than those inside these homes. Rooftops have not only increased in material value, but they have also increased in prestige. Here, the rooftops are being rented, and their rates may well exceed the rates of rented apartments. In terms of prestige, the residents feel the rooftops have become a stage for media stars who, in performing their roles, have become members of the household.
I never imagined I would be sitting like this on the rooftop.
Why are you sitting like this and smoking on the roof?
First, it's nice to sit with journalists. Second, we get to see Nahr al-Bared camp and watch what's happening with our own eyes. That's it.
I feel as if I'm a journalist, like them.
During a battle, unlike other people, the Lebanese go up to the rooftops more than they go down to hide in the shelters.
Are we afraid of strikes? We believe in fate. If it's going to happen to us, then it will happen to you. Nobody is safer than anybody else.
We're just watching. Whenever they launch a missile, we go to the roof and watch.
Aren't you scared?
No.
Not even a little?
No.
When you see the missiles being launched, aren't you afraid that one will land on you?
No, we were not afraid. We were used to it.
The problems of people on the rooftops are the same for those inside their homes.
The Minister of Education should either cancel the exams or postpone them for a while. For example, the children of Akkar are not studying while others are. Is that right? No.
Madam, now that the strikes have gotten closer to you in this area, do you feel that you're in danger?
I am not worried about danger. I am worried about my children, who are going to school in the city of Tripoli.
Because the eruption of clashes on the battlefront is no longer breaking news for media professionals, they're taking a break to give an opportunity for others to report the news.
Reporting from the outskirts of Nahr al-Bared refugee camp, Abdel Kader Al-Hosni, New TV. Okay?
Okay. But now that the battle has intensified, I must play my role. From the outskirts of Nahr al-Bared refugee camp, Nancy Sabah, New TV.
Cyclone Gonu passed over the Sultanate towards Iran, leaving behind 20 casualties and damages to properties in the governorate of Muscat. Some of the main roads were cut off. A few flyovers damaged. Commercial shops and residents were flooded. Beaches were drowned from the surging water and wadis overflew. Trucks, other vehicles and equipment were covered with mud, and trees fell in many places. The National Civil Defense personnel rescued many stranded people, and they are still surveying the area. Gonu, which means a bag made of palm leaves in luggage of the Maldives, was believed to be the strongest cyclone to hit Oman since record-keeping started in 1945. The sources stated that all the teams and formations of the civil defense and the affiliated branch committees at the governorates and regions wilayas of the sultanates, as well as the Sultan's armed forces and the Royal Guard of Oman, are continuously working during cyclone time. He added that they rescued more than 20,000 citizens and residents. Also, they worked since early in the morning to repair the damages caused by the cyclone to bring the conditions back to normal. The Sultanate was exposed during the last 24 hours to Cyclone Gonu, which affected the capital Muscat and the surrounding areas during the period from 11:30 p.m. until 4 a.m. The cyclone was accompanied by heavy rains and strong winds, the speed of which was more than 100 kilometers per hour.
طابت أوقاتكم من العربية وأهلا بكم إلى نشرة مفصلة للأخبار. نبدأها من عمان، حيث ارتفعت حصيلة ضحايا الإعصار المداري غونو الذي ضرب السلطنة على.
In Oman, the number of people killed in the cyclone Gonu, which struck the country in the past 3 days, has increased to 20. Meanwhile, 24 others are considered missing. The Oman authorities have begun to survey the extent of the massive damage, which was left by the cyclone, the largest to hit the Gulf in 30 years.
What was hidden by the night was revealed by the day. The cyclone, dubbed Gonu, left behind devastation and misery. Mansour al-Ghannami is one of the afflicted victims of the cyclone in the Ansab region located in the capital of Muscat. The floods and gale force winds caused by the cyclone struck his neighbors' homes in this region, collapsing a home.
والله مأساة يعني الوادي حصرنا من كل جهات.
This is really miserable. The cyclone completely surrounded us. We were there from 5 o'clock until 10 at night. After the force of the cyclone eased a little, I tried to go down and look at the road. Yes, with my children.
وأطمن على الطريق، أشوف طريق مع أطفالي. نعم.
The road in this area was completely destroyed, as were the communication and electricity lines. These scenes of this destruction are similar to many other areas that were hit by the cyclone, from the eastern part of the country to the capital of Muscat. Muscat's road network was massively damaged and parts of the city's bridges collapsed. Everyone here is talking about the suffering that was caused by Cyclone Gonu.
From a pure luck and by the grace of God, this region is close to the Air Force Academy. The courageous young men of the Oman Air Force carried out a courageous rescue mission that lasted more than 7 hours.
We see the people. For example, the house next to mine and the one next to it. For example, you see people in their homes who are asking for help. People are up on their roofs or the second floor of their homes. But there's nothing we can do. We are afraid for ourselves. Even if we try, what can we do? Instead of one person needing help, it will be 2, 3, or 4. Honestly, it is a difficult situation.
قلق لا يزال ينتاب الكثيرين من السكان لمعرفة مصير أقربائهم في مناطق.
Many of the residents are concerned and want to know about the fate of their relatives in remote areas, while the authorities continue to assist the afflicted and survey the human and material losses caused by the cyclone. The government appealed to everyone to volunteer and help in returning life back to normal. The afflicted residents have begun to tell painful stories about what has happened to them as a result of the cyclone, which left behind major destruction. This situation requires greater efforts to help facilitate reconstruction.
يوسف اليوسفي العربية مسقط.
في السعودية صرح مصدر مسؤول في
A source from the Saudi Ministry of Interior said that in the past 48 hours, security forces have arrested 11 Saudis suspected of inciting and financing al-Qaeda activities in Saudi Arabia. The source said that one of those arrested was proven to have attempted to carry out an attack on an oil facility in Beirut. An Arabiya correspondent reports that among those arrested is the leader, Abu Asyad al-Najdi, who is responsible for communications with al-Qaeda in the region.
تنظيم القاعدة في المنطقة.
رغم مرور 15 شهرا ما زالت التحقيقات تكشف المزيد عن الهجوم الذي استهدف مجمع بقيق.
Despite the passing of 15 months, investigations continue to reveal more details about an attack that targeted the Ibqaiq oil complex. According to the Saudi Interior Ministry, one outcome of this investigation was the arrest of an individual who collaborated with the cell that carried out the attack. The Ibqaiq incident took place on February 24, 2006, when a 6-member cell launched an armed attack on an oil complex after a failed attempt to raid the complex with 2 booby-trapped cars. This was the first al-Qaeda operation targeting oil facilities. Since then, the Saudi security forces have been able to obtain a lot of information about the attack and the perpetrators. After 3 days, security forces in Riyadh clashed with the group of perpetrators. 5 of the wanted suspects were killed, including the leader of al-Qaeda in Saudi Arabia, Fahad al-Faraj. 1 month later, on March 19, 2006, 8 wanted individuals were arrested in Riyadh and Aqasim for their association with the perpetrators of the attack. The investigations did not end there. On April 13th of the same year, 5 other suspects were arrested in Riyadh. Also found in their possession was a tape, which identified the equipment that was used in the attack on the Ibqaiq oil complex. 1.5 tons of explosives were also found. On April 27, 2007, the security forces arrested 5 people who were involved in the operation. One of them videotaped the operation and participated in gunfire clashes. The rest had various other roles, including conducting surveillance, making preparations, and providing cover for the perpetrators of the attack. To shed light on the arrests of 11 al-Qaeda suspects in Saudi Arabia, we are joined by Khalid Mutrafi, our correspondent in Riyadh. We received new information from our office in Riyadh about the arrests of al-Qaeda members, including the arrest of Abu Sayyad. Can you comment on that?
It was clear that Abu Sayyad was in charge of communications for al-Qaeda in the region, including Iraq, Afghanistan, as well as the inside of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's Interior Ministry announced that it had information that led to the arrest of 11 al-Qaeda members in the span of 2 years. The suspects, who were senior members of al-Qaeda and support the network ideologically, were arrested in and around Riyadh. One of the detainees was linked to a cell which tried to bomb the oil refinery plant in Ibqaiq. According to a Saudi Interior Ministry source, 172 suspects were arrested last month in connection to a foiled bomb attack on Ibqaiq.
Violent clashes between Fatah and Hamas have returned to the streets of Gaza. One Fatah activist was killed and a Hamas member seriously injured in an exchange of gunfire in Rafah today. We get more from IBA's Dennis Zen.
One person was killed and 12 others, mainly bystanders, were wounded during the morning as interfactional fighting spread across the southern Gaza Strip. This was the worst clash between Hamas and Fatah forces since the latest truce was brokered by Egypt some 2 weeks ago. The dead man was identified as the brother of a local Fatah commander in the town of Rafah. Soon after the attack, Fatah gunmen took to the streets of Rafah. They set up roadblocks and took up positions on rooftops. Hamas blamed Fatah for kidnapping 3 of its members earlier this week and torturing one of them, a bodyguard of PA Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh. Just 2 days ago, PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas said Gaza is on the verge of civil war. Meanwhile, the Bush administration asked Israel to permit transfers of arms to groups loyal to PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas in order to bolster its position vis-à-vis Hamas. The request sparked controversy in the Israeli security establishment, with some officials believing that the arms may eventually be turned against Israelis. In the past, Israel has allowed Abbas's forces to bring in arms, ammunition and reinforcements from Egypt and other Arab states. This in light of the fact that, according to Israeli and Western intelligence agencies, Hamas receives money, weapons and training from Iran. Dennis Zinn, IBA News.
When Israel's separation wall is complete, the United Nations estimates nearly 50,000 Palestinians will be trapped on land between the wall in the occupied West Bank and the 1967 Green Line.
Today, in parts where it has been completed, the separation wall has encircled Palestinian villages, restricting mobility, access to healthcare and farmlands.
Ayman Mohyeddin travelled to one such village where the residents say the wall has made them prisoners on their own land.
It's a good day for Palestinian farmer Anwar Ziad and his family. The military has opened the gate in the wall Israel has built around his village of Barta'a. Today he and dozens of others will be able to come and go as they please, but only if they have the right permits. Some days they aren't so fortunate.
We face problems every day in going and coming. When we buy things, everything needs a permit, which is always a hassle.
This is the other way into Barta'a, a much more complex vehicle and security checkpoint, manned by a private Israeli security company. Together, these 2 access points are the only way into this enclave, now trapped in the northwestern corner of the West Bank by Israel's separation wall on one side and the internationally recognized Green Line of the 1967 war on the other side. It's what the UN is calling the seam zone. When Israel's nearly 700-kilometer wall is complete, the UN estimates there will be nearly 50,000 Palestinians trapped in the seam zone, and that has officials concerned.
We're very concerned about people not being able to have easy access out. If you want to get to a hospital and you're in one of these seam zone areas, then you have to go through a gate in the wall. That can take some time.
Forbidden from entering Israel and with very restricted access to the West Bank, the nearly 5,000 residents here are feeling more and more isolated.
We are in a psychological border as well as mental as well as physical border. Barta'a is nothing but a big cage within which people are moving a bit free, but outside the cage there is no chance to move or to fly.
Israel says it's building this separation wall to prevent would-be attackers from striking inside Israel. But the route of the wall does not run through Israel. It runs deep inside Palestinian territories, which has many wondering about the real motivations behind its construction. Many believe it's to confiscate more land for settlements like Shakid that sits a few meters away from Anwar's home.
10.2% of the West Bank and some of the best West Bank land lies in the area between the Green Line and the wall. And if the wall was not inside the West Bank, that land wouldn't have been lost.
For 40 years, the residents of Barta'a have watched as boundaries, checkpoints and walls enclose their communities and restrict their movements and their way of life. Many have stopped dreaming of what life in the next 40 years will be like. For now, they're just hoping the gate tomorrow will be open. Ayman Mohyeddin, Al Jazeera, Barta'a.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs, programs which connect you to the world.